Okay, guys, this is going to be a great panel for everybody. You're going to get a lot of information here. I know a lot of you have law practices different stages. One of the most annoying questions I had when I first got started was when another guy would walk up to me and say, "Hey, Jason, how are things going? So tell me, where do you get all your cases?" Right? Super annoying. Yeah, I'm going to tell you everything I've been working so hard to do, right? Well, today's different. So today, you're going to get to hear from people who have really crushed it, have excelled at everything we're trying to do, and they're going to tell you how they did it and all the things that you want to know now. So you get to fast forward through all the educational stuff. This is literally what you want to write down and what you want to get to know. And I know they'll answer all of your questions. Right, guys?
Absolutely.
All right. So why don't we introduce ourselves? Tell us your name, where you practice, the number of staff you have, and the types of work that you do.
Hi, I'm Dana Brooks. I'm with Basic Brooks Law Offices, and we are primarily in Tallahassee, but we're across North Florida. Primarily all personal injury now. I personally have done medical malpractice, and I take sexual assault cases, things like that. We've got 8 lawyers and coming up on about 50 altogether staff.
I am Kenneth Catay. I own Catay Law Offices. I'm proud to say we're now the largest criminal defense law firm in Pennsylvania. We also have a PI department and a workers' comp department, and we have 7 offices throughout southeastern, northeastern, and central Pennsylvania.
Hi, hello. Hello, I'm Jan Dills, attorney. I'm from Jan Dills Attorneys at Law. I've been practicing for 30 years. I have 155 team members, 17 attorneys. I practice in 3 lines of business: nationwide, Social Security, and Veterans Disability, and a regional personal injury practice. About 90% of my team members are remote workers.
Hello, I'm Steve Malman, founder of Malman Law. We've been in practice for 30 years. We concentrate in car accidents, workers' comp, and we have one of the largest nursing home abuse practices in the state of Illinois. We have 45 lawyers, about 90 support staff, and 80 VAs in Colombia, the Philippines, and a couple in Costa Rica.
I'm Greg Ward from the Ward Law Group. I practice law together with my wife, Hani Martinez Ward. We're located in Miami, Florida. We focus almost exclusively on the Spanish market. We have offices in Miami and in New York now. My wife is a Spanish-speaking attorney, and we started with the 2 of us, and now we're up to about 100 domestic people, 85 VAs in numerous countries. And I think last year we settled over $250 million worth of cases.
Nice. So the worst kept secret in the room is that these folks got a lot of their success from, frankly, being a part of masterminds. It was the single best thing I did at my firm, and they'll all tell you the same too. But for those of you who aren't in a mastermind, I don't know what you're thinking about, but to help you with that, if you would, let's tell them when you first made that decision to get into a mastermind group, what did you think your challenges were as a law firm?
We thought we were so unique. We thought that nobody else could be able to help us because we were so special. We learned that we're doing exactly what everybody else is doing. We just look a little different, and we're in a different area. We have a different accent. The best thing about it to me is if you have the humility to know you don't know everything. You only know what you know. And if you're siloed, you're not going to learn from anybody. So we looked at it as, maybe we can learn something from these people, maybe we can't. But it's been invaluable to us. It's been a real game changer because it's a facilitation of all these great minds, more so than attending a conference.
So, first of all, Jason, thank you for agreeing to moderate this wild group of people up here. Appreciate that. So, masterminds. So, I remember this with my partner, Tom. I was here about 5 years ago, and I'm like, Tom, we got to join a mastermind. He's like, no, we don't. And I'm like, Tom, the next day, we got to join a mastermind. He's like, maybe. And then the third day, he's like, we got to join a mastermind. He goes, let's do it. So we did it. So the 3 things, our components are, we have phenomenal people, great technology, and masterminds. Masterminds enables us to grow and expand our law firm with like-minded people.
I joined Pilmma in 2008, and so I'm one of the original members. When I joined Pilmma, it was 14 years I've been practicing, and it wasn't that I wasn't successful. I was already the largest Social Security attorney in West Virginia, but I was just had a terrible quality of life. Met Ken in 2008, and he, and being in the room with like-minded people, I'm sole owner, didn't have anybody to bounce things off with. Being in that room, knowing that people have already made your mistakes that you're going to make, to be able to show them other things that you do well and that they do well, and if you have an issue, you can call them. I can call anybody on this panel, and anybody in our room in their mastermind, and they will pick up the phone. So I would say that has been the biggest impact for me, and just learning that just being in that room with like-minded people has been invaluable.
I agree 100%. Because we're all kind of on the same page, and I think the biggest thing is that everybody up here works on their business. None of us work in our business. We spend all of our time growing our business, improving our business, not handling cases, not in the courtroom, and that was one of the first things I discovered when I joined this mastermind is, hey, these people went from lawyers to business people. And we still take care of our clients, we still love our clients, we want to get them the best outcome, but we want to grow and run that business, and having each other and seeing what worked and what didn't work. Someone turns up with a piece of software, they've tested it, they've used it, it's great, you can vet it, but you know it's going to work because they're successful people. So having all that in a room together has just been amazing. It's really helped propel, I think, all of our businesses.
When we joined, we were about, I want to say 25 or 35 people, and we had a very collegial atmosphere, and I knew everybody's names. And there is a limitation to that, and what Steve said is true. I was the trial lawyer, I was the guy, and I just said, I can't keep doing this. I'm limiting my impact and my ability to service my clients. And so when I joined Pilmma, first of all, I sat down, and Jan Dills was incredibly intimidating because I saw how she ran her firm, and I thought, do I even belong in this group? Because she's so tough, right? And nothing against Steve. Steve was there too, but Steve is great too. But Jan was I was blown away. And so I just started saying, what can I do different? What can I do different? And they gave me permission to step away from that trial lawyer role and become a real CEO. And we haven't looked back ever since. Now, that also got us through, and here's another thing, we're all going to have crises, right? I've had personal health issues. We had COVID. I had a retinal detachment. I was out of commission, literally on a bed for 3 months. And it's these relationships and the inspiration you get from like-minded people that helps carry you. Because my team, I love my team, but they don't care like we care. I know Steve, I know Jan, I know Ken. We haven't actually, these folks are newer to me, but Jan and Steve and I go way back. I know they care about their clients as much as I do, and we bleed for our people, but I'm not going to court anymore, and that's okay.
Yeah, I always tell my wife when I'm going to my meetings, I'm going to my therapy. Because Jan, what you said is that, you were a sole owner and you felt like you were kind of lonely, alone, right? You had no one to talk to. I think what we do can be one of the loneliest jobs out there because you'd have to be crazy to just go tell people, random people, how you get your work and how much money you make and where you invest your time and what you think's going to happen next year, and it would make no sense. So we have virtually no one to talk to. And these groups are so great because you're in meetings with people who you don't compete with, and you can just say what's on your mind. It's really awesome. So all of you guys are 8-figure members, which means at some point you were running a 6-figure law firm and then a 7-figure law firm. So what I want to know is, what do you think got you from 6 to 7 and from 7 to 8? What were the things that helped you scale as you moved along?
Or first.
You go.
Okay. So I have a phenomenal leadership team of Ruth Umana, Tom Pivnickney, and Ryan Merrill, and we meet every Tuesday morning from 7:30 to 9. And it's great. It's the best meeting I have of the week. And that team helped me develop an intake team for the law firm. And we have an intake team that we got through Jason in Mexico. and we have people in Columbia, and we have people in-house. The intake team is, what it's been said earlier, is the most important part of your law firm. So if you got the intake right, you're off to 50% or a good start. Then you have to have the right people and the right technology, and you have to be able to track everything, and I mean everything. And I work, I do leads 25/8. I'm doing them in the swimming pool, in the bedroom, in the bathroom, in the closet. I'm doing it. That's like what Greg said. Yeah. He's new. No. I just, no. No. I do leads all the time. So and when you talk to your staff, they're like, yeah, I'll do it. No. I got this. I can do this. I'm feeling this. So it's all about hiring the right staff and the right personnel, and you got to get A-plus players. So that's the way to ascend, to go from a solo to making money to making a lot more money.
I will tell you, I come up here a lot and I'll tell you things that I've learned that don't work. So that's a lot of the benefit I get from Mastermind, is we tried this, it didn't work. A lot of vendor vetting. There's a lot of great vendors that you get the opportunity to meet and work with, but they're not all the best ones for you. And so it's really good to be able to talk to somebody who's had that relationship with them. But in terms of scaling, what we have learned is you can't take what is working and just do more of it. That's not scaling. You have to find efficiencies. It's not just if 3 is good, 6 will be twice as good. That is not how that works, and that's a very painful lesson to learn. You've got to listen to people who have done more than you, who've done things with more people, who've had greater results over time.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with Dana more, but what I had to, when from 6 to 7, I had to get down. You can do 7 and be on the hamster wheel. To get higher than that. And I think I had to go down to foundation, going back to making sure I had core values, that I was articulating the core values, that I had systems and processes, because when I wasn't around or wasn't on that phone, everybody knew how to solve problems by going back to the core values, having systems and processes. Everything in my mind and head went down in paper. And so I think that was the key, is getting that foundation and who you are, and then building it from that, because you can't duplicate yourself, but you can, in a way, let the entire firm know how to act and how to what to say, and when you're not in the room. And so that was part of the key. And then moving it to the 8-figure I would say culture is a big part of that. Not only investing in myself with these things such as masterminds, but going in and learning and self-development. Your firm will only go as high as you are. So if you're not growing, your firm will not grow, and it will be a toxic culture. So I think culture has been such an important part of that, and in personal growth, and then in developing my people to be great humans, not only inside our virtual walls, but outside our virtual walls. And Pilmma has helped with that.
Of course, I agree with everything Jan said. I think scaling, and we've all said it, starts with a strong leader. You have to be strong and decisive, and I know everybody up here, and everybody is, and you have to have a very clear vision so your A players can take that vision and run with it, and you have to let them do it, because it will hold everything back. So there's no B players on my leadership team. They're all top of the heap. I can lay out my vision like we all do here, and they will run with it and get it done. But getting back to culture, what Jan mentioned, is we have a culture, I call it growth and opportunity. Everybody at our firm can start out at whatever job, mailroom, like they'd say in the old days, and they could be a team lead of paralegals or intake. Everyone at my firm knows they can grow. They can grow with their career. They can grow compensation. They have opportunities, because you want to keep your A players. You want your best people to stay, and they're not going to stay if they don't have opportunities and growth. And that's what allows your vision to be carried out, by keeping your best people. So you need culture and strong leaders and a really clear vision.
and I'm going to incorporate by reference all those responses as well. I really very much echo that. I'm going to go a little on the darker side, which is, because I mean, that's why I'm here. Ken loves it whenever I throw the you know, you gotta learn to offboard the people who don't support your vision and your culture. One of the biggest struggles we all have is when I started with those 25 people were my friends. I had a lady whose husband died of cancer who went to my church, and she was toxic. She turned toxic, and she got entitled, and she was taking other people down, and I had to fire her when I caught her lying to me, and she went to the pastor of my church and said I'm a horrible human being. For real. She's still there. She's still there. And I told the pastor, I was like, well, let me tell you what actually happened. I mean, if you got an ego that's paper thin, forget it. You're in the wrong business, right? You gotta be able to fire your friends. I love all of my people. I love my team. I would not be here if it wasn't for my team. I feel like I got the best team in the business, at least as it relates to Miami. I'm sure you all feel the same about your teams, right? I'll die for my team. But if you're not fitting, you gotta go. Great book, Cy Wakeman, Reality-Based Rules of the Workplace. The second thing I will tell you, this is a personal motivation issue. If you're in this room for the money, you are here for the wrong reason. The money is never enough. Everybody on the stage makes more than $10 million a year. That's great. But I can tell you it is not enough to get you out of bed. But like I said, with the retinal detachment, I went into depression. I had to lay in this thing. Like, I actually thought I could retire. Do I want to give it up now? And if it was just about the money, I would not be sitting here today. I'd just retire and be spending time on the beach with my kids. And I'd be bored out of my mind. The money's not enough. And so if you just weren't thinking about the revenue, as Jan says, it's a metric. I call it a barometer. The money is an indication of how successful and how efficient you are, especially your profit margins and your revenue per employee. But if you're just doing it for the money, do something else. It's a lot easier to make money doing something else, I promise you.
All right, it's 4:25. I know you guys are checking your emails because we all have offices somewhere else. Stop. I want you to listen to this part right now, okay? Guys, I want you all to give this audience one takeaway. I was the worst note taker in law school. I purchased or bartered or stole other people's notes that were older than me. It was a lot easier than taking notes. But I was always like, if I came away from class, what one thing did I learn? And I would just add up the one things. It's not the greatest method. But for today, just listen to these one things from each of these people. I can't believe that one of these won't help you a lot, okay? All right, let's go. Lightning.
Mine's very simple. It's ask for help. You don't know everything. You only know what you know. So go find somebody you respect who's doing something you struggle with. They're doing it very well. And ask if you could shadow them. Ask if you could just come hang out, with them at one of these events or something like that. But the main thing is to ask for help.
So I just went to a client of mine graduated from DUI court was in it for 2 years. I just went to the graduation, and there was a judge here that spoke, and he said, there was I don't know the name, but there was a gentleman who ran in the Olympics, a sprinter, and he ran half the race, and he tore his hamstring, and he kept running, and 3/4 of the race, his dad came out to get him, and he finished. I can guarantee you, the judge said, nobody remembers the person who won the race, but everyone remembers the man who tore his hamstring and got across the finish line from his father. But I don't remember the name, so that's the story. So what the point is that be persistent, never quit.
You're quite the character. So everything we've said, I think, is a takeaway. But I'm in agreement with Dana. It's growth. If you believe that you know it all and that you're the smartest person in the room, and I don't think you believe that because you're here, but it's self-development. And again, the firm is only going to grow as much as as capable you are as a leader. So just self-development and persevere, and just don't give up on your dream and your goals. And just, it's not about, again, it's not about the money. It's not about, it's about doing what's right for the client. It's about putting the firm first over what you believe is good for you, but what's good for the firm and for your employees. If you treat your team members with respect and really invest in their personal development, it will come back tenfold to you.
So, of course, I agree with everything that's been said. I think the one thing you can all do is take risks. You can go right back to your firm. You can start that pay-per-click campaign, or do the LSA, or hire that lawyer that you thought was too expensive, but you really need that lawyer. But you have to take risks, and it gets back to growth. If you don't take risks, you're not going to grow. When you get that $1 million settlement check, I don't buy a new car, I don't go on vacation, I take that money and I buy more advertising. I take a risk, and if you want to grow your firm, that's the best way to do it, is to invest in yourself. There's no better investment than in yourself. You won't get a better return anywhere.
I think the best piece of advice I got early in my career was, you can't bring everyone on your ship or your boat. From Miami, we've got Cubans. You guys get the metaphor, right? You are going to want to save everyone. You're going to want to save your employees. You're going to want to save your clients. You're going to want to save, and sometimes these people are floating in the ocean, and you can only throw them a life preserver. Because if you bring everyone on your boat, you'll sink your boat. And so what I said earlier about, offboarding some people, that holds true here. But just remember, you've got to be intentional about the people who you serve as clients and the people you bring on as your team, because you're going to pour into your team. You're going to pour into your team. And by the way, while you're at it, be intentional about your friends too. Because we talk about this, and I can give you betrayal stories and painful stories. It's very painful at the altitude that we're all at. You lose a lot of friends. Be intentional about who you're trying to save with your friends. Because the other thing I will say is, if you're lucky enough to get one of these folks on the phone, and I know they will pick up the phone if you call, because I do it, listen to their advice, please. There's nothing more frustrating than, because many times we can see your problem right away, and then we give you advice, and you're going to spend 20 minutes arguing with us. That's not the real problem. Yes, it is. We were there. We did it. We know. And trust me, I lost a lot more money than you're about to lose on this, so trust me. Follow this, and they don't. So please, if you get the ear of someone on this panel or other people who've been in business a little longer and they've got good advice, listen to the advice. I'm always arguing with people. I just stop. I'm not going to give you any more advice. It just is, right? It happens, right? People don't listen. It upsets you, and you're like, I'm not going to spend my time investing in you. But I'm here for you guys. If you ever want any advice, I'm happy to give it. But please, take the advice. It's free.
So I know when you guys all started, I know it was true with me, like we did everything, right? We answered the phone, we collected bills and records, we looked at advertising, we did our bookkeeping even, right? And we talk about how important it is to work on our business instead of in our business. I'd like to know from you guys, what was the hardest thing to stop doing? Was it marketing? Was it bookkeeping? Was it the practice of law? Was it HR? Maybe the most fun thing of all. Which part of the which part of the business was the hardest thing to hand to somebody else because it felt unnatural, or you just didn't want someone else to do it, or what do you think? What do you think it was?
For me, it was not practicing law, and or not being lead, and it was letting somebody else handle my money. That's a big deal. I've managed other law firms before I became a lawyer, and it's very important to me. And I have to have somebody that I know I can trust, and there have to be controls on those people, and you have to feel okay with that. That's the kind of thing that makes your, have heart procedures and gray hair and stuff like that. That's the stuff that ruins your life, is not having the right people. For us, getting a COO was the next level thing for us. Now, unfortunately, we don't have something. We should have gotten probably half our size, which is an HR person, a dedicated HR person. HR problem, did you hear that?
Yeah.
HR is nothing but a problem. That's what I tell my law partners every time they want to hire a human. I think they almost always come with a personality, and they are always going to be difficult for those other personalities. So I always want a solution to be not hiring a human.
Yeah.
I'm big on automation, offshore technology as much as you can, but you've got to get the right people in place, because if you're going to get bigger, even if you can wear all those hats, it's not right for you to do them. You've got to always look at it, what I do, and say, is this the highest, best use of Dana's time? If it's not, somebody else needs to be doing it. I do only the stuff Dana can do.
Now, do you normally refer to yourself in the third person?
In the third person, always.
Yeah, okay.
No, I usually call myself Danes. It's great.
So the hardest thing for me to do is a couple things. Number one is bringing Tom on as a partner. giving him, delegating, Tom's awesome, Dana says. No, he's very awesome. So bringing Tom on as a partner, delegating some stuff to him, bring Ryan Merrill on as a managing partner for the attorneys, left some stress off Tom and I as far as managing the lawyers. And Ruth is our controller. She takes care of the accounting. That was very hard to let someone handle your finances. But one of the things I struggle with right now is I'm all about if there's an issue or a problem with some people, they email me and I try to fix it and then I get involved in a problem. I'm still struggling with that. So at some point in time, I have to just let it go and let them figure it out for themselves. So I struggle with that part of it. And it's because I'm very involved in my law firm, in my practice, and I bring a lot of energy, and all I want to do is help, but it's overwhelming at times.
I would say that the hardest part was, there's two things for me that I gave up. One was hiring another attorney to work my cases for the first time. That was very difficult to, I would say, give up control, and that was the first control I gave up. The second thing was to give up the day-to-day practice of law. I am definitely very involved in the firm. I am definitely involved in cases. I am not in the courtroom. So not receiving that feedback from clients and the hugs after the hearings has probably been the most difficult. The easiest thing I ever gave up was HR.
Yeah. I had a suspicion that's where it was going to go.
I can definitely say it was easy for me to give up the practice of law. I don't miss working on cases. The hardest thing is everybody here who started their firm from scratch, from the ground up, like I'm assuming most people did here, you know all the details. It's really hard to give up all the little details about everything and maintain the 35,000-foot view. When I walk into accounting and ask a question now, I have no idea certain processes that I may have created that we have written out and they're in a manual somewhere and people know how to follow them, but you have to be comfortable with giving up the little details. You just have to keep that 35,000-foot view and have an A player who can make sure the details are handled. But for me, not practicing, I mean, we all know handling thousands of cases, it was exhausting, but you have to be good with keeping that 35,000-foot view. And that really also drives growth at your firm.
The hardest thing for me to give up was negotiating cases. My wife is 15 years my junior in practice of law, and we're starting our practice together, so she's about a third year. I guess I'm an 18-year lawyer at this point, and I'm negotiating all the cases. And then she comes in, and I see her negotiate a case, and she kicked my butt. Like, it's not even close. Like, she negotiated some case, and then I was like, man, you're really good at this. How do you get so good? I've been negotiating cases for 18 years, and she just is a very naturally good negotiator. And then she built her negotiation team, and there are some ladies, and they are tough as nails. And so I said, you know what? I got to let go of this. And it was painful for me because I thought all of you think you're the best in your firm at something, I'm sure, right? And when you are confronted with the evidence that you are not, it is time to make a decision and make a change. And trust the process and trust the people. Hire good people, train them, let them do what they do best. And that, it's painful, but then that's how you can take a step back and really have an impact for your firm and have a great practice that you're proud of. I can blow up a deal really easily, right? I can go in there and sometimes I got to be the guy who comes in because it's my name on the door that says, we're going to do this deal, and I sanction it with Excalibur. But no, most of the time, my team is crushing it, and they're way better than I am. And that was a painful realization for me, but I'm glad I was able to look at the data and say, you know what, you're better than me at this, do it. And that's it, let go.
So we mentioned in the beginning that this group was kind enough to take questions. We have these big blue balls or boxes. I don't know what they are.
I don't know the connection with my name
And
that.
he's got them. So if you've got a question, I'd love to.
I have some boxes.
Thank you. There's a blue box for that guy. Only boxes. Anybody else with a question? Go second.
Yeah, you just talk in the blue box.
There we go.
Good catch.
All right, so just kind of a broad question. Generally, just looking at like your cases in terms of a whole, from a percentage perspective, how many would you guys say you have in pre-lit versus how many are pushed into litigation?
So for the Zoom audience, the question was, what's the percentage or the ratio between pre-suit and in-suit cases at your firm?
I mean, we don't, like at my firm, we don't have a specific ratio, right? I mean, if we don't get the money we want, it's going to suit. And if I got to hire more litigation lawyers, we're hiring more litigation lawyers. It's a random number. I don't think I have any ratio set up. It just kind of happens organically.
Have any of you guys ever noticed like
Yeah.
something that changed the percentage in your
Yeah,
firm?
I got
Like-
a single event
like-
practice in Miami. Let me
Right.
tell you what changed my litigation complexion, and that was tort reform last year. We filed 2,500 something cases in 3 days.
Yeah.
I mean, you want to talk about over $1 million in filing fees alone. It was awful. So a lot more of our cases are in suit now. But the ratio before the tort reforms, we had actually really good bad faith law in Florida. The ratio before was honestly 95% of our cases were resolved pre-suit. I mean, it just was. Now it's a lot more like 3 or 4 to 1 pre-suit, in-suit. But most of the truck cases, most of the commercial cases, we have ways that we transfer the cases, so it could be catastrophic depending on the injuries, the policies and things. I mean, almost every truck case is going to go into suit. Every catastrophic case is going to go into suit. So, but I can tell you that just anecdotally, it's probably 3 to 1, maybe, pre-suit, suit. But again, we've got $10,000 limits, so a lot of the cases are settling, pre-suit at $10,000.
So we have the grade Ryan Merrill at our law firm, and 90% of our cases settle pre-suit. But I could tell you, before him we had the wrong lawyer, and 90% of our cases went into litigation. So I think it's hiring the right lawyer, getting your shit done, getting it done quick, getting all the medical, knowing what your policy limits are, and if you have a low policy limit, get the case settled. Don't let it sit. Before we had lawyers settling, we were 2 months before the statute. What are we going to do with it? Oh, we got to file suit now. We don't have all the records and stuff. So you got to get, everyone says here, you got to get the right lawyer. And we actually had a lawyer, he was making $80,000 salary plus bonus. We really liked him. He was a young kid. You know what, we called him up and said, we're going to pay you $100,000, you're doing a great job. So we're investing in our future. If you have an A player, someone who's good, overpay him, get a hold of him, pay him right. Get that done, so they don't have to leave and go look to find another job.
Before tort reform, I think we found that we were having about 25% in litigation. But I'm more concerned about they weren't trying cases. They weren't going to trial. They had to be leaving money on the table. So that's something we're trying to help our lawyers develop more. But right now, we have the model where they take it cradle to grave. It's real hard to keep that pre-suit machine going and get really serious about litigation and especially trying a case. That is not going to work. They're not going to be able to do that well. So they're going to need to work together. You're going to have leads, more like kind of like a defense firm works. You might have a primary lawyer on it, a secondary. There's a lead paralegal on it. Litigation needs to be staffed differently than pre-suit does to be efficient, and to really get the true value of the cases you do litigate. Otherwise, you're just filing fees and waiting to get to a higher level adjuster. You're not really litigating that case and getting the full value.
Yeah, and I know in Florida, because we filed all these lawsuits, and trying cases is so important, like you mentioned. There's too many cases in the courts right now. You can't get trial dates.
Well, I find it's different when you talk to people all over the state.
Yeah.
Like some people are really having to litigate those cases, and other people are kind of winding them up a little slower, but not much. So I've talked to people in Florida who are having pretty different experiences there.
Who's got the other blue box? There we go.
When you talked about letting go of the details being the hardest thing for you, I mean, you're speaking my language there. I'm at a stage in my firm where I've written the manuals. I'm in the process of training a management layer to take care of those things, but I find myself getting sucked back in. Admittedly, it's my fault, right? Because I can't let go of that, and I'm quick to just drop what I'm doing and help people when they ask questions. When you all were at that stage, what is one thing that you did that you thought really helped alleviate that problem, or conversely, a mistake you made that you wish you'd corrected sooner?
Still trying to figure that out.
Ken, hold on. So for the Zoom audience, the question was, when you're at that stage, when you're trying to move past the point of knowing all the details about everything, what was the one thing that helped you the most?
So I'll give you a couple pieces of advice on that. We did some training on that because if you look at the DISC profile, right? You familiar with the DISC? Everyone familiar? The cautious, DISC, drivers, interactives, stability, and cautious people. I'm a perfectionist. I'm not cautious, but I understand that. Over 80% is failure. If you are over 80% dealing with the details, that is utter failure as far as management goes. You must force yourself to stop working at 80%. Does that make sense? You know what I mean? Like, you kind of know when you got 80% of the information, you need to shut it down. If you go past that, you got to say, I failed in this task. So I'm just giving you like a mental picture there to say, I can't be perfect. And the corollary of that is, you know, perfect is unrealistic. It has to be good enough. Fortunately, my wife is a pusher, and she's like, good enough for her is a whole different standard. So she and I together, like, she brings me back down from perfection, and I drag her up to 80%, right? So we work together with that. So get someone in your office who's not perfectionistic and give them a little bit of control, and they'll help talk you down from what you need to know.
I agree with that. I think just it doesn't happen overnight. So just a little bit at a time, and then you'll be able to give more and more. My first one was hiring another attorney, making sure they shadowed me and that kind of thing. And then just really making sure that you're hiring the right people that are like-minded. To be employed in our firm, you have to go through all these batteries of tests. We want to make sure you're a good fit. And so it's really important just to start and then build on that and surround yourself with good people. And understand that just because it's not the way you do it or you would have done it, doesn't mean it's wrong or it's incorrect. So being open to that and saying there's definitely different ways of doing things, but making sure that you have the core values are taught on intake when they are onboarded, and that they have all like-minded, and then when decisions are made that you're not making, that you're comfortable with that judgment or those decisions.
I also think one of the hardest things is we've all learned from our failures, so we know how to do things, and we ask people to do things a certain way because we've screwed it up 5 times or made a mistake 10 times before. They're going to have to go through that process. They're going to have to figure it out themselves. They're going to make mistakes. Hopefully they're not fatal mistakes, but they're going to make mistakes, and they have to learn on their own how to do the right thing, just the same way we all did here. Obviously, it's going to be a little bit better for them because you're going to have that history and that knowledge base and that process written down and that manual, but they're going to make mistakes, but you let them learn, and they're going to, if they're an A player and they're the right kind of person, they're going to come around and figure it out. Just don't get discouraged.
The other thing is, like, do a realistic threat analysis, because we as lawyers are taught about how everything can go wrong 100 different ways, but really 99 of those ways, it's never going to happen. Figure out the one thing that's going to be a problem and deal with that. You know, like, it really is, you know, you've got to just do a realistic threat assessment and say, my wife says I'm paranoid, and I can really think about everything that can go wrong, and I gotta dial that down. So figure out, what are you really worried about? Are you worried about looking bad? Because that is an unrealistic approach. You got to be worried about what's the threat to the firm, right? Like, what's the real threat? Am I going to get sued? Am I committing malpractice? And then to echo Jan is so good with the core values. My clients come first. Over my revenue, everything else, my clients come first. And if you do that with whatever decision you're making, you're going to be fine. Number 2, my team comes second. So, like, if you're making a decision matrix, core values, training your team, if that's a decision matrix, you're going to be okay. Like, they could screw up other things, but if those things are in line, you're going to be protected, generally, 99% of the time, and that's what you're really worried about.
We got another blue box out there?
Yeah. So when you are a smaller firm and you have a case in litigation, or just, I guess, any case in general from the point of intake, you obviously have discretionary expenditures in each case, and those increase once the case gets in litigation. Since you guys have scaled, how do you have standard procedures or practices for that decision making as far as case expenditures, reimbursable case expenses?
So the question for the Zoom folks, the question is, how do you have, what are the standard controls you have over costs and expenses on files, especially for a smaller firm than scaling to a larger firm.
One thing you need to do is to make sure you're monitoring these lawyers, especially bring in young lawyers, so they know that not to hire every expert right off the bat. You have to approve all their costs or not give them any authority over a certain amount. But I think the best thing to do is to get them a mentor, pair people together. And it doesn't mean they do all their cases together. It's just, if you have unique guidance on, how much money to spend or that sort of thing, you go to someone who's got a little bit more authority. If you're talking about actually cash, like are you financing your cost, do you have lines of credit and things like that, I think pretty much everybody's got to have one. Personally, in our firm, we don't use that for anything other than backup. We still finance our costs, which is stupid. Don't do that. And we're going to change it this year. You'll pay so much income tax on phantom income, it'll make your teeth hurt.
I'll add to this. I'm a Christian, I'm a praying man, and God always shows me the people who are making bad decisions, right? Like, it's funny, like, I get a call from a court reporter saying, hey, so-and-so ordered these 14 transcripts, and I'm like, no, it's a case not set for trial. I'm like, what, the what? And they just happen to call me, right? So first of all, put your faith in God, that's important. But I also have I hired somebody who was formerly employed by the Empire as my controller. That's a joke. She worked for Darth Vader. She was her controller. She fly specs everything. Like, I can't get an expense through the firm without her looking at it. So this is a tangential issue, but hire people who are not like you. My controller is super, super tough, and she's always on everybody about the expenditures they're making, and if it's an issue, she comes and talks to me about it. So a couple pieces of advice there. Number one, hire somebody who's really good at fly specking the bills. You will hear about the problems. And number two, basically is along the same lines, don't hire people who are like you. She's really good at other things. She is not somebody you want to have a drink with, but she's definitely somebody who you want watching your bank account, right? I love her, I do, but I love her for doing what she does, right? Love you, Raquel.
To your question, I think also one thing that gets overlooked by a lot of firms sometimes is really good evaluation of your files. If you didn't grade that file really highly, it shouldn't even be a question as to whether or not they can go spend 10 grand on an expert and 8 grand on some fancy picture or video or whatever, because the case is a B plus or a B, right? It's not an A file or however you grade your file. So sometimes just evaluating the cases appropriately in the beginning won't get you into a mess with spending.
And do it with other lawyers, not just one lawyer.
Yeah.
It's a whole bunch of heads.
Definitely. We have another blue box?
I think we have time for one more.
Okay, great.
Yeah, first, thank you for making yourselves available for all of us. We all appreciate it very much. My question is, when hiring or making the decision to hire a COO, when you get to that spot, where's your mind at? What are you thinking? What are you analyzing? And how do you get there?
So for the Zoom audience, the question is, when you get to the point where you want to hire a COO, what are the things you're looking for?
So that goes to what Jane said, our 3 core values: stronger together, committed to excellence, and 5-star client service. If someone's going to embrace those core values and they have the knowledge, training, and experience to do that position, we'll hire them.
As far as the COO, I'm looking for. I've hired my COs. We have. I have a COO in every line of business, but overall, I still hold that COO title. I'm looking for, to be in that role, a very analytical person, a very buttoned-up person, a person that can spot problems ahead of time, and that is just a really structured, organized, systemic person. And because it's so important, that's so important a part of your firm. There's be able to spot clogs in your pipeline before they get there, and they can react. So you're not putting out fires all the time. They're there to make sure that you have a very boring firm. There are no fires, and that's the goal. And you're looking for somebody who thinks that way.
Yeah. I would add that you've got to empower this person. Do not allow end runs around this person. Let this person do their job. And if you did your job in vetting them, like our guy's a black belt in Six Sigma and a bunch of stuff that I don't understand, but I know that that is important in a COO, and we have it. No, you need somebody, like you said, you're not looking for the personality. This is not the trial lawyer. This is the disciplined person. This is the person you would want to handle your father's estate if he died, that kind of a person. But you've got to empower that person. And that's very hard to do because that person is going to be the one who introduces discipline to your environment where there probably hasn't been any. And just like children, they're going to give you some pushback on that. And they're going to cry and they're going to go from mommy to daddy and complain about the new rule. And so you have got to be a leader. This is when you have really got to be a leader. You've got to put the people in the place to do their jobs, let them do their jobs, and empower them.
Steve, you want the last word? Greg, you want the last
I'll
word?
share
You guys
with
want to
Greg.
fight over the last word?
We'll do it together. We'll do it. What I say is, it is the hardest role to fill, in my opinion, especially when, like us, we started these firms, everyone only knows us. When you bring in somebody else, if they're not from within, it is really hard to have a cultural fit. The first thing you do is you call Jay Henderson. Everybody know Jay Henderson here? Real talent. Every high-level position we have, Greg uses every single position. They take the Jay Henderson exercise. It will tell you a lot about their personality, a lot, but it is a very difficult position to fill. It's what Jan described, but you can't rush into it. Your personality's got to mesh, but I think the most important thing is they have to fit within your culture. That's been some pushback we've had, and if there's not a perfect cultural fit, to bring in somebody else to run operations is just not going to work. The pushback you're going to have is going to be back to you, which is what you don't want. They're all going to be coming back to you because you're the face that they've known for 20, 30 years, however long it's been. So it's a very tough thing to do. There is no doubt. But you got to look for the perfect cultural fit that's going to work with your firm.
I got to say one last thing because, the last word. Do not hire people who are like you.
Don't hire your friends.
Okay? Don't hire your friends.
Do not hire your friends.
Do not hire your friends. Don't hire someone like you. The key to scaling your firm, I think one of the biggest keys, is learning where your weaknesses are and your strengths and hiring somebody who complements that. And the COO, none of us, I mean, Jan probably is. Jan definitely is. But I'm not a good COO. I'm a CEO. Jay Henderson, I took the profile. I'm a CEO profile. That is not a COO profile. You need somebody who's a pusher, somebody who doesn't have a lot of empathy, somebody who's going to crack the whip over these attorneys who are all stars, and they all, you need somebody who's going to push. And that's different than what I am. I'm the nice guy. I'm like, hey, so don't hire people like you. You're going to meet somebody who's a COO, and you're going to like them. That's not a good hire. Hire somebody who is different than you, and make sure that Jay Henderson approves, and you run the disc profile and all those other things, the testing that Jan does, tremendous testing. We do too. We learned it from her. Find somebody who's going to fill. Gina Wickman wrote a book, Traction. There's a couple other books out there. I like Vern Harnish stuff too. Like, they have profiles. You can find that out there and read what a good number two, what a good COO does. And so that's what I recommend you. Don't hire somebody, and this is for any position, don't hire somebody who's like you, unless you're trying to hire a CEO. And then you want to hire somebody just like you. But the truth is, don't hire your friends and don't hire anybody like you. They will let you down, and you're going to lose your friend, and you're going to be right back where you were in a year.
All right. Thanks, guys. Thanks for your time. Appreciate it.
I gotta up my shoe game.